Continuing now with our lead story, the apprehension of a terror suspect in the attempted bombing of Times Square. Joining us from Washington, former CIA analyst and head of the bin Laden unit, Dr. Michael Scheuer. Also, Congressman Peter King, the ranking member of the House Homeland Security Committee. Are you satisfied with the investigation so far, Congressman?
Bill, obviously this was a tremendous success. The NYPD and the FBI did an excellent job, I believe, of wrapping this up in less than, 53 hours or whatever it was. It was just excellent. The one real criticism I have, though, is not so much of the investigation, but I've never seen a situation on such a high-priority investigation where so much information, so much damaging information was leaked by the administration. It began 1 o'clock on Monday afternoon. They leaked it first to the Washington Post, and throughout the day, I was getting calls from reporters who had the most inside knowledge of what was going on, and so much so that by the evening news last night, it was being reported that it was the main suspect was a Pakistani who is now a naturalized American citizen. And I think that was really criminal negligence to do that, because they did not have that suspect in custody yet. That could only tip him off. He was carrying a weapon. That could have put law enforcement at risk. And quite frankly, he was able to, once he heard his name, once he heard that he was the suspect, it was soon after that he disappeared. And there were several hours where they didn't know where he was. That's how he got on the plane.
All right, but doesn't it make it easier? Doesn't it make it easier, Congressman, for the police to catch the guy when the whole country knows who he is and his picture's out there? Doesn't it make it easier to apprehend him?
No, there was no picture out there, no. And this was being done by the administration, by somebody in the White House or somebody in the Justice Department. And I've spoken to people in law enforcement. They've never seen it done to this extent before.
You think it was too much information too quickly?
Absolutely. And I'm asking the FBI to investigate who leaked it. Because this administration keeps a very, very tight hold. John Brennan in the White House is he's a control freak. He controls everything.
Well, he's the guy that... I'm not going to speculate. All right. What's the big picture?
I'm just saying, no, I'm saying, Bill, I'm not either. I'm saying the FBI should investigate who did it, because you could have put lives at risk here.
Okay. What's the big picture, Doctor? This guy just a lone fumbler, or do you think he's got some power behind him?
I think it's the first attempt we've seen from the Pakistani Taliban to respond to the pounding that we've been giving them over the past 3 or 4 years, Mr. O'Reilly. This clearly was a job that was in the works for at least a few months, maybe a year, and it was amateurish as a result. But I have to say that it was successful in everything except it didn't explode. And so they'll come back again if they're not already in the country.
Do you think this tape that they put out, what is it, the TTP, Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, released a tape before and said, hey, we're going to attack a number of American cities. Do you believe that this is all a coordinated effort by the Taliban up in Waziristan in Pakistan?
It certainly looks increasingly like it's going to be a credible threat from them. They advertised it as a revenge attack for several of the people we've killed with the drone. This man was in Pakistan for training. The Pakistanis have arrested several other people, as I understand it. And as important, this man was on his way to Dubai, which is a very strong pro-Taliban place, because Dubai was the one access route for commerce into Afghanistan when the Taliban were in power. I don't think it's conclusive yet, but I think it increasingly looks like the threat was credible.
Okay, so it's a TTP. Now, that's different from al-Qaeda, Congressman. And on the House Intel Committee, have you come across this group? Do you know, is this a growing threat? Again, I mean, the bombing was not carried out well by this clown, but, you know, for the grace of God, he could have taken out a couple hundred people.
The Taliban in Pakistan is a threat. It has not been a threat to our homeland up till now, but it's clearly a threat. It is clearly Islamic terrorists. And, Bill, what's happening is we have done an excellent job of keeping terrorists out of the country. The 9/11 terrorists have a difficult time coming in. As a result, you have al-Qaeda and their allies, including the Taliban, recruiting Americans who live here, people who are illegally in the country, so they can be under the radar screen, and it's a lot harder to stop them. The good part of that is they're not as well trained as the former, the professional al-Qaeda types. On the other hand, what makes it more difficult for law enforcement is they're under the radar screen, they don't have a record, and they're not affiliated with terrorists overseas. So in some ways it's less dangerous, in some ways it's much more dangerous.
You got a bunch of amateurs that are recruited on the Internet. Do you think, Dr. Scheuer, that the Internet is a growing menace because they are recruiting on it and they are planning on, attacks, or is it easy to penetrate that? The CIA can pretty much monitor it.
Oh, I don't think it's easy at all, Bill. The Internet is an extraordinarily diverse and kind of a multi-optional affair. It's a very useful tool for the terrorists to use. And they're really not so much recruiting on the Internet as that people are coming to them to join up. Mm-hmm. One of the mistakes we made over the course of a decade or so was to believe that these groups like Al-Qaeda were out there recruiting. It's more of an attraction. People try to find their way into Al-Qaeda.
Yeah.
That's the reason there's no problem with having
manpower.
Well,
I hope we have a few CIA guys trying to find their way in, but it is a dangerous game. Gentlemen, thanks very much. We appreciate the update. Directly